to the sandwich generation, where you and I are stuck in the middle between our kids and grandkids and our parents and grandparents, and we're just trying to figure it all out for everybody. Today, I want to talk to you about what if you have to drop off your loved one at senior living when they don't want to go, and it's going to be ugly, so let's unpack it. Sometimes in senior living, you have a scenario where you've watched my video where it talked about how to talk to someone that doesn't want to move to senior living, how to talk them into that scenario. And sometimes what happens is their current situation gets much too dangerous for them before you can convince them to move. And what do you do when that happens? Well, let me tell you, right off the bat, it's gonna be ugly. And it's gonna be ugly, but just for a little while. And so that's why I wanted to talk to you about this, because it will not last forever. And so let's think about it from a different perspective. I'm thinking about like the first time I had to drop my son off at Sunday school when he was a little baby. And he screamed his head off because he was a baby and he needed his mommy, right? And so he screamed his head off. And whenever I came back to pick him up in an hour, I had been wringing my hands the entire time that I was in my Sunday school class, and I was just terrified that he had been in there just screaming and losing his mind the entire time. But when I picked him up, I looked in on him and he was fine. He was smiling, he was laughing, and he was enjoying being there, and the people that were there taking care of him and that were teaching him things, they were loving on him, and everything was okay. Most people have already lived through something like that, where you've had to drop off a sibling or a child or a grandchild or, the first day of daycare. Those things have happened to you before. But it happened with a child, and people expect that from children. People expect those things to happen. But when it's an adult and when it's your parents who were at one time very strong and capable and took care of you, that's not something that we're built to expect. Even though they are an adult and they have been strong, they need you right now to be strong for them. They need you to be able to handle this situation, because most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, if they're in a scenario where you cannot talk them into moving in and they are in a dire situation at home in terms of their safety, that situation usually has to do a little bit with dementia. And whenever you think about dementia, everything's off the table at that point. Dementia messes with their mind. If they had cancer, you'd say, oh gosh, they have cancer. We're going to do surgery. We're going to do chemo. We're going to do radiation. We've got this plan, blah, blah, blah. But when it's your mind, they look at you and they look just like your parents, and they talk to you and they sound just like your parents, but their brain is not the same, and it's a disease process just like any other disease process, and they need you to take care of them like they took care of you. They need you to be able to make these decisions for them for their safety. Do you think for 1 second that this parent that you love, that raised you and took care of you your whole life, do you think they would have left you as a child in that scenario that they're in now? Of course they wouldn't have, because if they would, you wouldn't be talking to me right now about being worried about them. But no, they took care of you. And they would have never let you live where you forgot to eat. They would have never let you live in a scenario where you couldn't take care of yourself, where you had medicine to keep you alive that you forgot to take. They would have never done that to you. And even though they are upset with you and it's going to be ugly when you first move them in, you have to be the one to advocate for them. You have to be the one to be strong. And yes, you're going to cry. You don't have to cry in front of them. Be strong, just like you were when you took your baby to daycare or whatever that scenario was for you. You're going to move them in. You might even have to tell them you're going someplace else if it's that extreme. It has to be extreme to do that. But truly, if you're in that situation, you do it. You tell them you're going to McDonald's. You tell them you're going to see their cousin Faye. You do whatever you've got to do to get them safe. And so once they're in our building, you're probably, if it's that big a deal that they're fighting that much, you're probably going to have to turn and walk right out the door and let us handle it. And I say us is in my community, but every other community, exactly the same story. So don't borrow trouble and say, well, that's your community. No, this is how it has to go sometimes, and we know that. Now, we would greatly appreciate in any community to know that that's the situation we're walking into, so that we're prepared to handle it for you. But these are very big deals. It is not okay to leave your loved one at home where they're not safe. If they're losing weight, if they've wandered over to the neighbor's house in the middle of the night, if they've done those things that have your antenna up, get them out of there. It is not okay to leave them there. And you can do this. And yes, it's going to be ugly. And when you turn around and you walk out that door, as my granddaughter says, go have your tear party. That's probably the best advice my granddaughter ever gave me, is that sometimes you just need a tear party. And so go cry. Go cry your eyes out. Do whatever you've got to do. Don't do it in front of them if you can at all help it. Be strong for that moment, and then go out there and be upset. And just know that they're going to throw a wall-eyed fit. But we're equipped to handle those things, and we're going to take care of it for you. And eventually, I'm usually a couple of weeks, eventually they will simmer down enough that they are thriving now, and they're eating again, and they're going to activities, and they're making friends. Even if you're one of those people who say, my mama, all she does is sit in front of the TV, she never speaks to anybody. Well, that's because she's isolated. So let us give it a try. You have nothing to lose. I know this is scary, so let's stop. Let's think all this through. Take a breath. If you have concerns, if you need help, you give me a call, okay? Thanks for watching today.